Hi everyone, happy Saturday. Today I wanted to bring back this doll that I talked about in previous videos and sort of kind of do a topic that has come up a lot, which is how to just do some simple modifications or customizations to a Blythe doll without the entire customization process. So I'm going to give you some of my thoughts on that and kind of what you can and can't really do. And then we're going to do some customizing of this girl. So first of all, as far as removing the eye chips, it is possible to do it without removing the eye mechanism, but it's not super easy. You're going to have a glue stick, which is the process you're going to do whether you take her apart or not. And basically you have to get the glue stick, melt it a little bit, and stick it on there. So you can see it's going to be a little bit hard to do that for the ones that are turned to the left or right. It might be easier to do it to these ones, and you probably could get it out without getting glue on anything else, but I just don't think it's going to be very easy, and you risk getting glue all over everything. So the bottom line is, same with the hair. You can wash the hair and condition it while it's on your doll. But again, I don't really recommend it because usually the best treatment is hot water, pouring near to boiling water over the hair, because it will fix these bangs so they're not separated like that and make the hair straighter and flatter and a little more natural. And you really don't want to pour hot boiling water over your doll. You don't know what's going to get inside or ruin the paint. So the other thing about this doll is she has had some matting done, and I think maybe even some sanding, because her eye makeup is gone. If you look at her eyelids, they've been sanded. So she's really in a situation where she needs to either be carved and customized, or her face needs to be fixed. It needs to be sanded, matted, and her lips are in great shape, but she doesn't have really any blushing. So I haven't really decided. I feel like I'm probably going to carve her at some point, but I thought maybe we would do some of these gentle modifications first. But the bottom line is we're going to need to take her apart, and I don't know what kind of scalp she has. She might need to soak, and it looks like she probably does. So the first thing we're going to do is try to take out her screws and see what we're working with. Different molds are easier to take apart than others. So if you receive an older doll, I mentioned this in my last video, my last information video, there is a website, Blythopia, that you can go and you can look up the name of your doll and see what mold she is. And depending on what type of mold, it can be harder to take apart. So that can help you decide if you want to buy a doll or not. But even if you get her, like I got this one as a gift, so I wasn't choosing her. And the bottom line is, any mold, you will be able to take her apart. It just sometimes takes extra work. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get those little screws out. If you're new to customizing and this is your first type of doll, you just want to find the easiest one possible, in my opinion, to start with, because as you start to try to pry the doll apart, especially if you're really just trying to do light customization, it can be a little intimidating getting the doll apart. And so her body came out, and it looks like she's pretty flexible. So I'm wondering if whoever customized or modified her a little bit had already taken her apart. But you'll notice that her scalp is not really coming apart at all. So I really don't want to put too much pressure on it and break her. So we're going to kind of just put her back together like that, and I will show you how I put her in water. Basically, I'm going to get a Tupperware of hot soapy dishwater, and I'm going to submerge her head in there. I'm going to change her lashes also, and if you want to test the lashes or change them without taking her apart. You can sort of pull on them, but depending on the doll, sometimes there's like no give. They're not coming out, and those have to be soaked too. So the only thing with soaking is it's nice if you can just soak sort of the rim of the doll. But if you want the eyelashes out too, you can either submerge the whole head or wait and do the eyelashes after she's apart. I prefer doing that just because there are metal screws and parts inside the doll, and you don't really want her to get all rusted in the water, because we're actually going to soak her at least a full day. We'll check on her tomorrow, but it might be a couple days before that glue loosens up, but it will. So if you let her soak at least 24 hours, if you don't notice any difference after 24 hours, just keep letting her soak, and you should be able to sort of pull. I mean, you don't want to pull too hard, you don't want to pull the hair out, but the scalp should start to give way and come off. So it looks like the back scalp is, the back plate part is a little bit easier, but we're not going to pry it, so let's put her in some water and then we'll come back and check on her tomorrow. Okay, so here's our soapy water. It's really hot. It's okay if the water cools off. You can always later add more, change the water, but it really doesn't seem to make too big of a difference. And as you can see, I'm just going to sort of place her in the water, make sure that it's getting around that edge, and you don't have to submerge the whole head in there, and we'll just let it sit now. Again, we'll try 24 hours and see what it's like, but it might be a couple days. So let's check on her tomorrow and we'll see you all soon. Okay everyone, it's the next day and we're gonna go ahead and take her out of the water and see if her scalp will come off. As I said yesterday, she still might need to soak another day. Usually 2 days is enough. Sometimes 1 is enough, but most of the time 2 days is best. So I'm going to take her out of the water and put her on a towel, and then just sort of try again with the prying. And what I kind of do is just wiggle it back and forth, and you'll see that it's starting to separate. The back plate is not as important as the front plate, so if I'm struggling with the back plate, I will usually just leave it on. The front plate needs to come off though if you're going to be doing any carving, or if you want to get the eye mechanism out. You could possibly leave it on and just cover the hair to spray it if you wanted to do color, but if you're carving it all, you're going to need to take it off. Another option is to sort of cut it off with a scalpel, but that's not always the best option. It might be a way to get it started though, so you just want to be really careful that you're not cutting up the rubber part of the scalp too much, but that, as you can see, can kind of get it started. I also use this little screwdriver to kind of pry in there and to sort of loosen it up. But it's not really coming loose very easily. So I probably would think about soaking this one another day, although it looks like it's the kind of scalp with the dome inside there. And so it might not even actually help so much. We might end up cutting it off anyway. So I think I'm just gonna go ahead and do that so that we can kind of work on her. So what I do with the scalpel is I don't really cut. I just sort of get it in between there and sort of move back and forth to loosen it, not really cut it. I hope that makes sense. You just don't want to butcher the top of her head. It looks like it's coming loose. What I want to do with this doll, I might eventually carve her, but what I'm thinking is I would like to just sort of do a few customization things. So I'm thinking that what I would like is to just give her some blush, maybe some eyeshadow, but probably just blush, and color her eyelids since they're kind of sanded. And then change her eyes to some realistic ones is sort of what I'm thinking. Oh, and I want to cut her hair because I like short hair. This seems to be the worst part. So this type of doll has a plastic part of the head where instead of having a screw on the inside, there's actually another one of these little poles that goes inside, so you have to get that loosened up before it will come apart also. These are my least favorite type of Blythe dolls to customize. The plastic is really hard, and you can see I just cut into there on accident. They're very cute when they're done, just like most Blythe dolls, but they're the hardest to get apart and work on. So the part that's still stuck is a little bit of this front scalp and inside that little pole. Oops. I don't know if you can see how that's coming apart. We do have to cut down in there. Be careful with your fingers. The last doll that I did like this, I ended up giving her a wig because it was easier. But I don't think I'm gonna do that with this one. Because I want to leave her black hair. There we go. So it's pulling out some of her plugs. I don't want that to happen. Oh, what a mess. So that's her hair, and this is what this type of one looks like. That's the other little pole I was talking about inside. And it looks like she has some discoloration, which might be from the water. So her hair was really fused in there, so we're gonna cut that off. Okay, so we have her off. I'm gonna take her spring out. I might as well just give her sleep eyes since we're already taking her apart. We're gonna set her hair aside. It's very stiff. We're gonna give it a wash and a condition before we decide to use it again. And then let's take out her eye mech And we'll probably just throw, throw the eye mechanism in the water and let the eyelashes loosen up, because we're going to change those also. Let's get her little T-bar off. So she's got some makeup still in there. We're going to want to get that off. Doesn't look very good. But her lip makeup looks really good, so I think we'll leave that. I think I'm going to do a little bit of light sanding, get that makeup off in there. It looks like something was put on her cheeks because they look whiter. So get that off. And then we'll spray her with a coat of Mr. Super Clear and add some blush. Probably not going to do anything to the back plate. And we'll wash and condition her hair. And then we'll see about putting her back together. So you can see the eyelids have some gunk on them that we're going to sand. And we'll take out these eye chips. But for right now, I'm going to throw her mechanism in the water so that we can get these eyelashes loosened up. So stick those in there. And then let's sand her a little bit and get her sprayed. Okay, so I've got just 1000 grit sandpaper. It's very smooth. I don't want to do too much to her. I just want to give her a nice finish, get off anything that is on there, even though it doesn't look like, I think she must have been sprayed with something like Mr. Super Clear, but not a lot because there's not a lot of color. And let's get this makeup off, which we might need a better sandpaper for this, but let's see. I don't want to touch her lip makeup, so I'm going to be very careful going around it. When you're done sanding the doll, you want to wash it off. I always try to wash them with really hot soapy water and with dish soap. Dish soap will get all the oils and any of the sandpaper dust off the doll. So before you spray her with Mr. Super Clear, you do want to make sure you get it all off. And I wasn't going to sand the back, but now looking at the back, it looks like she either has smudges or coloring on her back. So I think I am going to go ahead and do the back plate too, just so she's nice and fresh. All right, so now I'm gonna go wash both of them. I have her hair conditioning in the bathroom. We will need to do a hot water treatment to that after it's done conditioning, but I will show you that when we get there. So let's get these washed and sprayed so we can add some color. Okay, so she's been sprayed with one coat of Mr. Super Clear, which should be enough for just adding a little bit of blush. I might add a little bit of color around her eyes just for some definition, but I really want to keep her basic and as close to kind of her original as possible. So I'm going to use a little makeup sponge. This one's already been used a little bit. I just want to add some red, but I'm thinking kind of more of like a pinky color. This is not really magenta, but it's just more of a pink red because it will match her lips a little bit. So let's put a little bit on. My goal is not to make her look realistic, but just kind of keeping with her original sort of look. It's probably going to take 2 to 3 coats to really build the color to what I want. So we're going to just sort of start with this And then we'll spray her again with Mr. Super Clear and see how much more we want to add. As you can see, it's really, really light, and I definitely want it to stand out. So she's gonna have black hair, and I'm thinking that I might do some purple eyeshadow. The eyeshadow, I don't want it to be really dark. I just want a little bit. So we're gonna put some on. It's a little tiny tinge of yellow still from her previous makeup, I think. So hopefully we can cover that up. We'll still probably need a couple layers for it to actually stand out, even softly, so you can see it a little bit. I'm gonna go spray her and we'll put on another layer. So I've just added a second layer of color on her. I thought my camera was recording and it wasn't. So I'm probably going to spray her one more time, and I don't think I'll add more color. I'm not positive. I do like a lot of blush on my dolls. I think it stands out better in photos, so I'm gonna take a look. Sometimes what I do when I'm not sure if I'm done coloring my doll is I take a photo and look at her online and see what it looks like on the computer, and then decide if I want to add more color. So let's spray her again and we'll check her out in a photo and see if we want to add more or if she's all done. Hello, so it's been a couple days. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get this entire video done on the weekend, and things ran out of battery and light and all kinds of things. So let me give you kind of an update of where I am with her. So I finished blushing her. I did 2 layers of paint and 3 layers of Mr. Super Clear, just blushing her cheeks and a little bit around her eyes and nose. I conditioned her hair and gave it a treatment. It was much flatter when it was wet. It's starting to get more poofy. I am going to trim it once we get it on her, but it is a lot softer, so that's good. The back plate has been sprayed to match the front plate, but I didn't do any painting or changes to it. The eye mechanism soaked and the eyelashes came out very easily. Now I still need to sand off whatever happened here on the eye lids, and possibly spray them or just leave them sanded. I'm not sure. I'm also going to change a couple of the eye chips, but not all of them. I decided I'm going to take out the blue and the orange. I'll leave the green and the pink, and I'll change the other ones to realistic ones, which I haven't chosen yet. So I thought we'll kind of just start where we left off by getting these factory chips out. So I thought it might be kind of nice to leave her sort of like partly authentic but partly customized, because I prefer the realistic eye chips, but it is kind of nice since she's going to be sort of like an authentic doll. Even though she's had changes, I don't want to change her too much, so that way she'll be able to change her eyes to sort of like the old ones or sort of the fresh new customized ones, realistic ones. So I've made videos before about getting the eye chips out, but one of the things that people ask me a lot is they do this and then they snap off the glue stick and it just snaps off. So what you really want to do is hold it firmly and twist a little bit and then sort of pull it out, and it will come out much easier. So if you find that when you're trying to do it that you're snapping the glue stick off a lot, try twisting it. It works much better. So let's get these eye chips out and then we'll select some new ones. I'll probably choose some darker color since she has dark hair, and then I'm hoping we can get her put back together today and see what she's gonna look like. You do have to make sure it dries, and if you spin it at all it gets on something else, but glue stick comes off very easily, thankfully. And every now and then it doesn't work for me either and I have to try again. I don't really feel this one and I'm probably pulling it off too soon. So let's try that again. And what I think I'll do, since I'm kind of trying to rush this, is I'll put it on and then I'm gonna go collect some things like some new eyelashes for her and some eye chips. And when we finish up getting these eyes out, we'll be able to change them. I don't want to try to sand these while that glue stick's on there either. So let me go collect some supplies and then we'll start again. For eyes, I chose some dark eyes. I normally like dark eyes on dolls no matter what their hair color, but because she has black hair, I chose some dark brown, which I'm not super into, but I chose some lighter brown, and these ones are like a dark green, so I'm hoping that they look good. They're brand new designs that I just made. They're not even in my shop, so we'll see if any of those look good. And let's get this last one out. So that was easy. So now we've got these little holes, and let's choose them. So normally with the eyes that are dead on, I really like them to be dark, because a lot of times if they're not dark, they look really weird. And then I like to kind of hold the hair up to see kind of what it's gonna look like. And I'm not a huge fan of that pair. So let's see what these look like. They're not quite as dark, but they're prettier and I kind of like those. So I think we'll do those. And then do these dark green ones. I really like when the doll is looking to the side, so I'm thinking that I usually choose the pair of eyes that I like the most just for the design to be in the side facing ones. So let's see. I think those green are really pretty. So let's sand off her eyelids. I got some sandpaper that's like 1000 grit, and I'm gonna move the eyes so that we're not accidentally sanding on the new chips. I don't really want to do much other than sort of correct this, whatever happened here. And then maybe we could paint our lids or just leave them as they are. Not very much of the eyelid shows, even if you put sleep eyes on the doll. So you really don't have to worry so much about getting all the way back. It's really just this front area. This side is a little bit worse than the other side. It looks like someone tried to remove the factory like shine and then paint the lids or glue something on them. I'm not really sure, without taking the eye mechanism out, which is kind of hard to do. As I said in the beginning of the video, even if you're planning on just doing light customization to your doll, it's a little bit hard unless you take her apart, just because it's much easier to mess her up. And a lot of the customizations that you might want to do, you really have to take her apart. Like if you want to boggle the eyes or make it so that the eyes can look up a little bit or their gaze corrected, all of that kind of stuff, you do have to take her apart, which we're going to also do so that she's not looking down. She's got a little glue stuck in here, and I want to make sure I get that out before we try to put some new lashes in. Okay, so that's pretty good. You're probably not going to be able to see any of this. There's a little bit of a line still from whatever was put on there, but I'm not going to be able to see it. It's pretty faint. And I think I'm just going to leave them as they are. I might put a little gloss around the eyelashes, but I think I'm just going to leave them sanded. Okay, so for the face plate, if we want the eyes to go back a little bit, we have to trim inside of here. So let's do that. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see because of the way this dome is and the way I have to hold it. So I'll just do it quickly. I think I have another video of how to do this. Basically, trimming this allows the eye mechanism to be able to rotate back so that the eyes will look up more. So the other thing we want to do before we put the eye mechanism back in is get her strings, because it's easier to get the string that goes here in before the eye mechanism is on. So let me go pick some strings for her and we'll do that before we put her back together. So I already showed you in a video not too long ago the best type of string to buy for the pull string. It's this much thinner cord, and we're going to use black, since her hair is black, on the one that goes here. And we'll use a thicker one that will go on the other one because it doesn't matter as much how thick it is, and I want to use a pretty color. Okay, so once that's in, you're good to put your eye mechanism back. I always do the eyelashes after the mechanism is in, just so they don't get messed up. So we're gonna put this back in first. And we're gonna get our T-bar. Trim that a little bit. This is the other part that will make the eyes look back or look up a little bit instead of looking down. So as you trim the T-bar, you want to sort of check, and if you trim it too much, then it won't allow the eyes to change, so you want to be really careful that you don't do it too much. So kind of check as you go. That's probably close to plenty. And I don't think these are the screws for that, so let me grab a little tiny screw. I have so many screws everywhere around my house. Luckily, it's easy to find one when needed. So you're gonna put this back in, except I think this one is too small. Well, let's try one of these big ones. So that works. Can see her eyes are opening really well, so that's good. You want to make sure they rotate. That sounds pretty good. So let's put the other string on. The other one goes here. This is for the sleep eyes, so that her eyes can stay closed. All right, so strings are on. the eyelashes also have a little bit of glue on them, so sometimes you're trying to get them in and they're sticking to you and they're sticking to whatever you're trying to put them in with, and it takes a long time. And then you want to add a little bit of glue. I just use Elmer's glue. Don't use anything more powerful than that on eyelashes, otherwise you risk damaging the eyes. Okay, so I'm going to add the glue to the other eyelash, and then I'm going to glue on the scalp, which is going to take a while. You can use super glue. I don't recommend it. The best glue to use is the E6000 glue, but it takes quite a while to dry. So once you glue it on there, you need to put rubber bands around her head to hold it on very firmly. I try to do the least amount of gluing possible, so I'll probably just glue the front just so that the seam is a little bit better and not worry so much about the back. But once the scalp is glued on, then we will cut her hair and she should be done, other than picking a new outfit for her. So I will be back after the scalp dries. Everyone, I'm finally back. So a couple things. First, I did not intend for this video to take quite so long. Also, yesterday I had a bunch of technical difficulties. So the part of putting the rubber bands and the glue on her did not record. So even though this video is so long, I thought instead of trying to do all of that, I'll just go ahead and tell you what I did. So as I said, I used the E6000 glue to glue the scalp. It's firmly on there. It doesn't look amazing, but that's kind of what happens with these dolls. So luckily their hair pretty much covers it up. I also cut her hair. That's pretty hard to show on a video because she needs to be standing in the way that I do it. So I'm really happy with her haircut. I also found a dress and some shoes for her and a hat that I'm going to put on her. So I thought for finishing her up, we would put some beads on her. I have this adorable monster hat that I think will look really cute with this dress. I also had hoped to finish this video on the weekend when they were not doing construction. So if you hear a lot of noise, they are still doing construction on my apartments and making a lot of noise. So anyway, that's the outfit she's going to wear. I'm going to take a couple pictures of her. Still having a hard time with those bangs staying flat, which is why I thought maybe a hat would be cuter on her. I'm going to pull her hair back a little bit. So all she really needs now are some beads on her pull strings. So I thought we'd choose a couple of those. And then I'm going to take a picture of her and she'll finally be done. I'm really happy with how she came out. She's much cuter, in my opinion, than she was when she arrived. And as I've said many times, I don't really collect authentic dolls. I prefer the custom ones, or I shouldn't say authentic. I don't collect stock dolls. I like them customized. However, I really like her as she is, so you never know. So as far as beads, I'm not going to do anything too creative just because this doll is staying with me, so I don't really need to do anything too fancy. I really like these bubble looking beads, even though they're kind of cheaper ones. So maybe we'll just do a bunch of circles. I also have a little bit of a cold today, so I really want to get this video finished up. I got all the other parts uploaded and edited last night, so that hopefully all I have to do is add this ending and this video will finally be done. So I think we'll just go with these. I usually do much nicer beads if I'm selling the doll, but right now I just want to get something on her, and they're not super important to me. Some people get really creative, and I'm actually going to have some pull strings for sale in my shop because a friend of mine traded me for a bunch. So I always leave the strings long when I first attach them to the doll, but then you want to hold her up and see where they go down to, because if they're too long then you can see them, and if they're too short you can see them. So I want them to end about there. Okay, so for this larger string, sometimes the beads also will not go on because it's too fat. So hopefully that's one sort of limitation to the beads that you can use. Just kind of a bummer because there's some really pretty beads, but the holes are too small. And there is a tool where you can make the holes larger for your beads, but to me it's kind of more work than I want to do for this part. Okay, so she's got some simple beads now, and we should be able to change her eyes. There's a pair of her original ones. They look cute. There's the other original ones. And back to the green ones. So let me take a photo of her so you guys can see her more up close, and I hope you enjoyed watching this long video that took forever. So as always, please subscribe, and I will get back to making videos every Saturday, hopefully this week. Bye bye.